Today's show is about two women making history and helping to preserve history. On January 21st, 2022, Navy Commander Billy Farrell became the first female captain of the USS Constitution in its 224-year history. Captain Farrell is now the 77th commanding officer of Old Ironside, and she's the first woman at the helm. So, welcome, Commander, and please tell us, how did you get this assignment on the USS Constitution?
Thank you so much for having me today.
It's a pleasure.
So the way the Navy works is we have boards that select you for milestones and promotions. And so I was serving as the executive officer on a ship, which is second in command, when then I was notified I had been selected to command my own ship by the board. And so at that point, we went through the list of ships that were available and options, and USS Constitution was on the list. And so as soon as I saw it, I immediately thought, this is the job I want, and applied for it, and then interviewed and was fortunate enough to be selected.
So out of that whole list, this one stuck out and it just compelled you. What was the reason for that?
I just think it's such an important part of our history. It's one of the original 6 frigates of our Navy that we know today, and so to be the captain of that, and it really is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity since she is the only one of those ships left. And so to represent the Navy in that role, to me, it did speak to me and seemed very special. And I couldn't think of a better place to come serve my country than on the ship named for the document to which we in the military take an oath to support and defend.
Good point, good point. Had you been on the Constitution at any time in your life prior?
I had. My family came to Boston on a family vacation in 1998, and at that point we visited the ship. There's actually a photo of me standing next to the ship. It's also the same year a woman took command of a combatant ship in the Navy for the first time. So as soon as I was selected for the position, the first thing I did was go find that photo to reflect on the moment and kind of the story of that and progress and how it happened.
That was before you were ever even in the Navy, so never in your wildest dreams, right?
Correct. Before I was in the Navy, but I was already interested in the Navy at that point.
You
so
were.
In the photo,
so you had an early interest in the Navy.
I did, yeah. So in that photo, I actually have a Naval Academy hat on. My family had stopped at the Naval Academy for me to look at it before we went to Boston. But 6th grade is when I actually told my parents I was going to go to the Naval Academy. I was channel surfing one day, found a graduation ceremony, watched the whole thing, and as soon as it was done, I found my parents and said, I know where I'm going to school.
It was your calling. You just knew right then and there, from
was.
6th grade on.
It was.
Not many people can say that they found what they wanted to do in 6th grade.
Yes.
That's amazing. You are a first now, the first female commander on the USS Constitution. What does that mean, being the first?
It's very special, and it's an honor, and I'm privileged and humbled every day I get to come to work and set foot on the amazing decks of the ship and work with the amazing crew of active duty sailors that I have. But the other thing that's really important is, again, the first woman took command of a ship in 1998. Today we have over 30 women in command of ships across the Navy, and so I really get to tell their stories as well, because so many of them are deployed around the world doing the mission the Navy asks of them, and so I get to represent them as well, just to show people what we do in the Navy and to be accessible.
Do you, as the 30 women you said, who are commanding ships in the Navy, have a club or an organization or some way of connecting with each other, or do you pretty much just blend in and integrate?
It's a little bit of both. There's some personal preference, and so there's some places I've been. Before this assignment, I was in Norfolk, Virginia, and there was a group that got together every so often just to tell sea stories and to talk and support each other. But I've had that with groups of women and groups of women and men, and so the Navy across the board is designed to help support you and give you a structure wherever you are, and so it's really been a blessing to have that. So, not being the very first female commanding a ship, but being the first on the Constitution, the staff and the volunteers, everybody has to kind of get used to a change like that. What have you encountered as people get used to that? So I have a crew of 80 active duty sailors on the ship. About a third of them are women. And so the crew has been nothing but supportive and receptive, and I would actually say the whole country. From the moment that the news first came out that I was going to be taking command of the ship,
it's gotten a lot of publicity.
It has, and it's been nothing but an overwhelming outpouring of support from everyone, and so I've been truly appreciative of that, and it's been great.
Is it more than you expected?
It is, but
Surprised by that?
A little bit. I talked to several of the former commanding officers, and so there are 19 former commanding officers of the ship that are still alive. And so that support structure that you find in the Navy so many other places, they really lend to Constitution, because there's not another 220-year-old frigate laying around where you can get advice or anything else. So they really provide a network that you can rely on. And so even the support, almost immediately they reached out and said, hey, you're one of us now, welcome, what can we do to help? And so to have that has just been great as well.
That's really, really special, and I think I'm just wondering, in terms of how much outreach there's been to you to talk about this role and to talk about this first. Has it affected the team that you work with, all the other members? Do they feel that they want to be a part of it? Do they feel like it's exciting for them as well?
I think so. I think we've seen our visitor numbers going up on the ship, so we're averaging 3,000 to 5,000 visitors on the ship a day now.
Wow, that's great. That's great.
And so some of them say,
is there a curiosity factor, you think?
I think one, just people are ready to get back out and see things,
right,
and do that. But there have been some people we've talked to that said, I either forgot the ship was here or I didn't know the ship was here. And so they came, I saw you on the news, and so I came to visit. And so I think the crew definitely finds that piece of it exciting, that people are responding to the story as well, and allows them, something to talk about and be part of.
Well, and are you always on the ship when it's open for tours, or how often are you on?
Sure, not always on the ship. So I have an office adjacent to the ship. So usually I come in the mornings, I start my day there, have a meeting with my senior enlisted advisor and my executive officer, my second in command, and kind of get everybody's priorities going for the day. Get through any emails and phone calls and meetings and kind of the 2022 business I have to do. And then at some point during the day, though, I take a break and go back to 1812, and I go out to the ship and I walk the ship, and sometimes I'll sit in the captain's cabin out there and do work and just talk to guests and show them, my favorite pieces of the ship. And it's always one of my favorite things in my day.
You said you go back to 1812. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so going back to the ship, she's a representation of the War of 1812. She's in that configuration.
But you refer to her as 1812?
I do, and so the uniform I wear, if I'm not in a modern uniform, I have an 1812 uniform that I wear as well. I don't always wear it in the summer though, because it is wool and hot.
So many of those uniforms are thick wool.
And but also it's good to wear the modern uniform out there, even when I go back to 1812, but to remind people we are an active duty crew. We're the oldest commissioned warship afloat, manned completely by active duty Navy sailors, and so to provide that kind of balance and blend of the two pieces next to each other is also important.
Now, you said that 6th grade was when you decided to be in the Navy. You saw something on TV, you saw graduation, you knew. And how did your family react to that? I mean, had you had anyone in your family in the military, in the active in the military?
Both my grandfathers served in the Army for a few years each, one during World War II and one during Korean War. And they always talked about it, but it was very brief periods of time, definitely not career military. And so other than that, my dad was a city police officer and my mom was a city school teacher. So I think they were a little shocked when I told them that's what I was going to do. But they've been nothing but supportive of my entire career and helping me find the way. I'm from Western Kentucky originally, so obviously not a lot of naval presence there. And so they helped find mentors and people that had served in the Navy to link me up with, to help me in that process of figuring out what I was going to do.
So you moved here from Kentucky. Is that correct?
Moved here from Virginia.
Oh, you moved here from Virginia.
From Kentucky originally.
From Kentucky.
And then I've moved 6 or 7 different times throughout my career, and the most recent one was from Virginia.
Okay, which is very common in the military to be moving around. Yes. How long is this assignment for you?
2 years.
Okay, 2 years, and you're only a few months in.
Correct.
So what next?
I don't know. So about a year from now, I'll start talking to the people that do our assignments and see what's available. That is some of it, who's leaving jobs that need to be filled and what they have available, plus needs in the Navy, and coupled with, another move for my family potentially. So I don't know. So we'll see.
Is this always a 2-year assignment? And why is it limited to 2 years?
It is a 2-year assignment, but there is some flexibility. So some of it you're allowed to put in minor extension requests or change the date a little earlier if there's personal reasons or even professional reasons. reasons. And so the Navy will work with you to figure that out. But otherwise, that really, the Navy is kind of set up so that every few years you're moving jobs, one, to keep you progressing through the ranks. So someone else needs to come in and get the experience as a captain, so then they can go on and progress through their career as well, and become eligible for whatever the next step is.
Yeah, that makes sense. You have to have openings so that everybody gets the experience, that's for sure. Good succession planning in the Navy. You started to talk a little bit about what your day was like. And I just want to go back to that for a minute, and just because people think, okay, the Constitution, you know, it's docked in Charlestown, and you know, you're open for tours, and it goes out every now and then. But how much what does the work really involve?
Sure. So tours are a large part for the sailors on board. Like I said, 3,000 to 5,000 people a day is a lot that they.
3,000 to 5,000 a day.
A day that they talk to, and so that's a lot of it. But we also have to worry about the maintenance, and so a lot of times we're doing work on the ship. We actually have a detachment on Charlestown Navy Yard with us. They do a lot of the major work on the ship, and we're blessed to have them and their skill sets with us. And the sailors still actually climb the rigging and go up the mast and do sail training, and so that's also a big part of it. And so we do all those things, and then coupled with community outreach, we do lots of things where we go to schools, talk to them. We have a flags and funerals division. We do military funeral honors, probably for about 2 funerals a day in the greater Boston area. And so for 80 people, it's a lot of work, and
that is a lot.
They do a lot every day, and I'm always amazed at how much they do.
So this is 80 people on the staff, but then you also have a lot of volunteers, or you don't?
The volunteers that we have really just help man the visitor center and a partnership with the Park Service, but everything on the ship is either the detachment here or the sailors that are assigned to the ship.
It sounds like it is a lot, for considering the diversity of tasks that you have to manage and coordinate and be a part of. So you must be very proud.
I am, every day.
How often does the ship actually sail?
So we leave port 7 times a year. The last time the ship sailed completely on her own was 2012 for the bicentennial of the War of 1812. And so now when we go out, we go tug assisted. And so the crew size in the War of 1812 was 450 to 500. So with a crew of 80, I just can't quite do the same things that they did back then. And so that, and we take a lot of the sails and other things off the ship for the winter so that they don't deteriorate as much here in the winters in Boston. And then we have to have time to get everything back on the ship in the spring and summer. So even now we're still getting the ship kind of back to her prime configuration leading up to her underways. But the one that most people get excited about is the July 4th underway. That one's kind of the people's underway. It's open as a public lottery. This year we had 11,000 entries for 150 spots.
11,000 entries.
Yes.
That's phenomenal. There's so much interest.
Yes, which is great.
And when you said 450 to 500 was the original crew size?
It was.
It actually slept that many?
It did. The sailors, if you ever come to visit the ship, there's the berth deck, which is where the sailors slept and ate. They would grab their hammock and go down for their 4-hour shift of sleep, and then get on with their day. And so they would rotate through doing that. And so yes, it was very tight quarters and hard labor.
And it took that many people to keep the ship moving and underway.
It did, underway and ready for battle.
Yeah. You know, I don't think that those of us, you know, civilians who aren't involved really have a grasp for what it takes to operate these ships. I mean, back then, obviously, things have changed. The ships, you could end up on a ship that's much more current. And I think, you know, they would all have their different complications and features that you would have to manage. Do you want to command other ships after this?
I love being on ships, and I love being at sea, and so I've been very blessed to have that have been my career in the Navy. And so in my past, I've been on 3 different Ticonderoga class guided missile cruisers, and so it would be great to potentially see one of those again one day. But again, we'll see where the Navy needs me.
Now, when you were coming onto this assignment, was the reality of it any different from what you expected? When you got here, was it different than what you had expected, or were you pretty much aware of exactly what you were getting yourself into?
I mean, some of the former commanding officers had definitely, you know, told me what was going to be involved with the job and everything. I talked to some of the crew, and then the current, my predecessor, I talked to him on a fairly regular basis. But I think even then I wasn't fully prepared, and I think I've been pleasantly surprised at how rewarding this job has been, even in the few months I've been there.
And with the other, you mentioned that your staff, you have a lot of women on your staff. Has that evolved over time? Has it grown? Are you seeing more and more women in the Navy than you have over the many years you've been in the Navy yourself?
We are. We're seeing more and more diversity across our ranks in different ways. And so for the military in general, we can't just recruit into our upper ranks. And so we can't just pull someone and say, congratulations, now you're an admiral. It takes a career of service to get to that point, to have that experience and to understand the military. And so a lot of times when people ask me, why it took so long for me to become a captain, this journey actually started for me 22 years ago when I went to the Naval Academy as a midshipman and then progressed through the ranks. And so now that we're seeing more and more diversity at the junior ranks, it's resulting in more and more diversity across our leadership as well. And so it's great to see.
And how does this specific assignment affect your personal life, your family?
So there's a few more kind of outside business hour engagements I go do and things like that, but for the most part I still try to be home every night to cook dinner for my family. My husband just retired from the Navy last month, and I've got 2 little kids, and so... Is
that how you met? Did you meet in the Navy?
We did. We met at the Naval
great.
Academy when we were midshipmen. So, and so we've done this journey together of him for 20 years and me for 18, and piecing it together and making it work. And so now with little kids, but it's great. They love the ship. They love to come visit, and they love getting out in Boston and doing things. And so it's really great to be able to share that with them. 7 and 3.5.
So they must find this all very exciting.
They do. They're having a great time.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Maybe you'll spark the interest in them, and when they're in 6th grade, they'll make the same declaration to you. Maybe even sooner.
They both have already said they're going to be in the Navy.
They have?
So we'll see. We'll see. Both last day of school signs they held up this year said they were going to be in the Navy.
Oh my God, that's amazing. See? Oh my God, that's amazing. What do you think you want to do while you're living in the Boston area? Because you haven't lived here before. You're here for 2 years. What do you want to do while you're here?
I just want to do everything, which is a lot, I know. But even just in the few short months that I've been here, I've gotten to do so many great things and meet so many amazing people. And again, just getting out to represent the Navy and the ship and to share that story has been an amazing experience. And I was really touched. I was invited to a lot of Memorial Day ceremonies, and so to be able to represent the active duty forces at those kinds of ceremonies and remembrances and commemorations is just always special. And so that...
You're in New England now, though. Well, what about you? What do you want to do in your personal time for you in New England?
We get out on the weekends, and we just kind of pick something that, at the different museums that are available, or just getting out and exploring the city. So nothing specific. It actually is kind of more targets of opportunity since we have the time. And so we don't really have a bucket list, I would say, but we're doing as much as possible to make sure that we get the full Boston experience.
Great. And when you're on your own time, you don't have to be in uniform, right?
I don't. I wear regular civilian clothes and enjoy my time with my family.
You talked a little bit about the different uniforms and that for all the different occasions, and that some of them are made of wool. We're in the summer right now. You have what looks like a nice, cool, refreshing uniform on right now. But can you talk a little bit about, for the public who sees you in different uniforms, what the differences are between the uniform you may wear on the ship, the uniform you're wearing now, and just explain what some of the things that are on your uniform represent? Sure.
So the Navy uniforms, typically we have a huge variety, like you just said, and they kind of run everything from a working uniform that's designed to get dirty and to do kind of day-to-day work, all the way up to black tie kind of equivalents. And so I have all the 2022 uniforms. The wool uniform that I wear for, say, the July 4th underway, though, that's a wool uniform that's a period uniform from 1812. And so it's very hot. The epaulets on that uniform weigh 7 pounds each. And so it's
7 pounds each. And the hat itself, how much does that weigh?
The hat's actually very light. It's just tall, but it's not that bad. It's pretty light there. But yeah, so this uniform for me is called Summer Whites, and so it's kind of our equivalent of a business casual, kind of not really working uniform, but talking and going out and doing things. And so the shoulder boards designate my rank. So I'm a commander by rank. That's what these are.
So the different stripes that are on, what did they?
So
they go
as
from
you
lower
start,
rank to higher.
Yeah. So as a junior officer, you would have one stripe there that would represent an ensign, and then as you progress through the ranks, you either add a half stripe or a full stripe.
And the stars are there for everyone?
The stars are here for unrestricted line officers, and so if you do, which just means kind of the ship drivers, aviators, those kinds of jobs in the Navy, doctors and supply officers and some of the other communities that we have actually have a different symbol on their shoulder boards, so it helps designate what their job is in the Navy. The gold pin here is my surface warfare officer pin, so that's my job in the Navy. I had to earn this pin on my first ship. I had to get qualified in that position, and so, but once you're qualified, you get to wear it for the rest of your career. And so all it means is my job in the Navy is to fight, drive ships, and lead sailors, and so that's how I got that. The ribbons are all personal or professional awards that I've gotten either myself or from units I've been assigned to, from a variety of rifle, pistol qualifications, all the way up to deployments, served, and then meritorious unit commendations and meritorious service
those are
medals.
the ribbons. Then there are stars on some of the ribbons.
Correct. So if you receive more than one award, so the first award you get the ribbon, and then the following awards you would get a star to designate that you've received that award multiple times. And then the pin over on this side is actually called the Command at Sea pin, and so as long as you're the sitting captain of a ship, you get to wear it. And then when you have change of command, at which point the new captain takes over, you actually move the pin from the right side to the left side, and it would go over here under the ribbons. So you would be able to tell if someone is currently the captain of a ship or if they were previously the captain of a ship.
Obviously, everyone in the Navy knows what these things mean, but I have to say, you've won quite a few awards. I would not have known that unless you had explained it, and really achieved quite a bit. 3 stripes and all those awards. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Really quite a accomplishment that you have in decorations to prove everything that you've accomplished. It's really wonderful. Do you have any personal aspirations, well, I should say professional aspirations in the Navy? Is there a certain rank or is there a certain level that you want to achieve, that you've got your sights set on?
Not necessarily. This whole journey has been one step at a time and making the right decision for the job and for my family. And so, but I've been very blessed and happy and have been thrilled with the career. And so if there are opportunities that are still there and the Navy still has work they need me to do, then I will continue to do that. And so we'll see. That's a great thing, is you never know where this journey is going to take you. And there's so many different opportunities and options across the Navy. And so, kind of leaving the door open a little bit to see where that goes is a nice option to have.
And when you start in the Navy at such a young age, and like you said, your husband retired after 22 years, you said?
He was at 20 years.
He was at 20. Then you have opportunities to do other things as well.
Absolutely, yeah. There's all kinds of different jobs that either keep you associated with the Navy, or you can go do something completely different. And so it's nice, again, to have choices and options and to be able to do that.
Do you think that, is there anything that you feel you want to impact or change, that you, at your level, you can impact and change in the Navy?
So the biggest thing right now is we're really ramping up and focusing on the ship's 225th birthday that happens later this year, and we're planning to celebrate that for the entire year of the birthday. And so I think we've got such great momentum right now going since I took command of the ship, that we're really trying to just continue to share the story of the ship and her history and her heritage to our country and to our Navy. And so, a lot of people in Boston know the ship is here, and not necessarily in the middle of the country. So really trying to focus on pushing that information to the kind of the middle of the country into a younger demographic. I love when the kids come to the ship because they just see things from a different perspective and ask different questions. And so, so for the time I'm here, we're going to kind of focus on those two things and see if we can make an impact to widen the number of people that get to hear the stories of Old Ironsides.
Has the celebration begun yet officially?
It has not. October 21st of
when it
2022 is when it starts. We have an underway plan for that day. We're inviting all prior crew members back to celebrate with us. And then throughout the year, we're looking at
all prior crew members are
Yes.
being invited back. That's
They are.
amazing.
Yeah,
oh my
so-
God, that'll be huge.
Yeah, so I can't think of a better way to celebrate than the people that have kept the ship alive during her life. And so excited for that. And then we're planning a bunch of different events through the entire year. Hopefully some contest. The ship was saved once by a poem published by Oliver Wendell Holmes, Old Ironsides. And so, looking to do a poetry contest again, kind of using that as inspiration, but just to celebrate the ship and get people involved from across the country and celebrate, the ties to the ship. The ship was made from materials from all over the country, has had sailors from all 50 states serve on her, and so just to continue tying the country together with that story.
And the ship really gave the country the reputation it needed to be an independent country, to be a self-sufficient, independent country, strong country, by winning the battle in 1812.
It did, absolutely. And so the 6 frigates really collectively, we were not as well known as the British in our mariner skills and battle proficiency, but absolutely, once the battle with HMS Guerriere happened, where the ship earned her nickname of Old Ironsides,
right.
She returned to Boston victorious, and that really set the stage for our naval heritage and kind of legacy that we have today across the world.
And Old Ironside is not made of iron.
She's not. She's made completely of wood, of the live oak and white oak that made her so strong. And so, yeah, it's, trying to explain that to kids sometimes is hard. But
kind of bounced off, right?
Correct, they did, yeah. During that battle, HMS Guerriere started to fire on Constitution. A sailor saw the cannonballs either get stuck in the side of the ship or bounce off the side and said, "Huzzah, her sides are made of iron." And then once she came out of the battle victorious, returned to Boston, then the nickname just stuck and has been part of her history ever since.
Well, she has a big birthday coming up. We look forward to seeing all the festivities to celebrate the 225th birthday. And that begins in October.
Correct.
It sounds like you have a lot of plans, and I think to be the commander during that celebration is going to be an incredible privilege.
Absolutely, yeah. Commanding the ship every day is a privilege by itself, and the fact that I get to command it during this period of her life and again share that story with more and more people is exciting and humbling.
Well, thank you so much. We look forward to following all of the celebrations and encouraging everyone to take a role and participate, and reminding them that there is this unbelievable ship and that they need to come and see it from wherever they are in the United States and abroad.
Correct.
Congratulations to you and for all the fine work that you're doing, and we look forward to hearing more about the celebrations that are coming up.
Thank you so much.
Special thanks to Commander Billy Farrell for sharing her experience making history as the first female captain of the USS Constitution. The Constitution is open to the public free of charge, with tours Tuesdays through Sundays, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. throughout the year, with some scaling back of the schedule in the winter, but you can check Facebook and Instagram for updates on that. Coming up next, we're going to meet Anna Tucker, the new executive director of the Framingham History Center. We'll be talking about her new job preserving and sharing Framingham's history. We'll be right back.
STEM is the discipline of hard numbers, precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to get messy, or just mess it up. Dare to program something internet-breaking, record-breaking. Dare to blow their minds. Dare to try. Dare to fail. Dare to keep daring. Science! Dare to learn the difference between organic, sedimentary, and non-foliated metamorphic rock. Get outside. Find those rocks. Dare to be homeroom famous, a high school fable. Dare to send those old STEM theories flying past the neighbor's house into outer space. And for the love of STEM, dare bigger. Dare to code, dare to invent, dare to explore, dare to STEM. Check out She Can STEM to get started.
This is where I find adventure. This is where I gain confidence. This is where I laugh. This is where I hang out. This is where we make memories. We don't do this every day, but when we do, we make sure it's an adventure. This is our life. This is venturing.
Anna Tucker took over as executive director of the Framingham History Center on May 23rd of 2022, and she has had a 14-year career as a historian and as a museum curator. So happy to have you here today, Anna, and to learn more about you and how you became the executive director of the Framingham History Center.
Oh, thank you for having me here today. I think as we were talking about earlier, we're neighbors, not only in Framingham, but right across the street from each other. So it's wonderful to join you here.
We are in the Framingham Cultural District.
Absolutely.
And rightly so.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And now your new leadership there is setting a new course for the History Center, which has had one leader for the past 17 years. So how did you get into that role?
Well, I have to say, first of all, I'm so grateful for Annie Murphy, who is the leader for 17 years. In so many ways, she built the institution from a historical society of one person into a 6-person team that is doing exhibitions and programming and research as well. So in so many ways, she built an institution that is an incredible opportunity really for any person who's interested in extending the role of history into the community. So I actually learned about this institution thanks to a national search that was conducted by the board of directors for the Framingham History Center. I actually came here from New Orleans, so quite a distance away.
So you relocated for this position?
Exactly, it's specifically for this position itself. So while I was in New Orleans, I helped to open a brand new museum, the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience. And I was really looking for an opportunity to delve into community history again, specifically within the role of executive director. And the Framingham History Center, thanks to the national search, definitely caught my eye. So I did relocate here from New Orleans, but my journey actually didn't start in New Orleans.
Where did your journey start?
So I actually grew up in Maine and Rhode Island. So as a young child, I had an opportunity to be in New England, but from there, I actually moved down to Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I completed my high school education, and I went to college, and I actually started my career as a museum professional and a curator. So in a lot of ways, it's been a circuitous journey back to New England and back to an area that I have the roots in as well.
How does it feel to be back in New England?
Oh, well, it is so much cooler.
Yes.
I will have to say that. So moving here from New Orleans during the summer has been a fresh breath of air, both figuratively and literally as well.
But you haven't been back for the winter yet, have you?
Oh, no. Yeah. I'm delaying that as long as possible. I'm not even thinking about that right now. But it's been a wonderful return. But in many ways, I'm new to Framingham. I've never lived in Massachusetts before. So as I'm starting this new position, as you mentioned, I just started about 6 weeks ago. I am embarking on a listening tour. I want to really hit the ground listening because as an executive director for a history center, I want to make sure that we have the perspectives involved in our programming and our exhibitions as well. So this is a great opportunity for me to not only learn about Framingham's history, but Framingham's present as well.
Was this a passion of yours when you were in college and when you were going through your younger years deciding what you wanted to do? How did you land on this?
That's a great question. And you actually hit on that this was not my initial career ambition. So from the time, my earliest years, I was actually interested in becoming a concert pianist. And so I trained
Maybe we should let you play.
Oh, maybe, or maybe not. But no, I would spend 8 hours a day in a practice room, and I became very invested in the role that music can play in communicating ideas and feelings and emotions. And I was in that role until I was around 18 or 19 years old, and I actually started studying abroad, and I became very interested in the role of history because I actually visited a specific site while I was abroad, and I saw how people became so involved in history. They were visiting historical sites, and they became a layer in that history itself. And so I started thinking about what's my role in history? What's my identity? And the passion that sparked made me realize this is what I want to get into.
That's some pretty deep thinking.
It really is, and you know, I would say maybe in retrospect it's built up in my memory, I would say, but it has become so important to me because I've realized that a person's commitment to a community and also their security in a community really depends on the history that they've developed and the history of themselves as well that they've developed over time. So that helped me sort of shift from music into history. But in a lot of ways, like music, history is a way to explore connections, to explore ideas as well. And it's something that's very accessible, just like music.
So when you first found out about this position, had you ever heard about Framingham?
I actually had, and it's thanks to the Framingham Heart Study that I had heard about it initially, and also thanks to either road trips or vacations or travel. I've been nearby to Framingham before, but when I heard about the Framingham History Center, my initial thought was about the Heart Study, which is so fundamental in different scientific communities and different health industry and related communities. And as I started researching the position, I was really stunned at the layers of history that exist in Framingham. It's so much in terms of family history, business history, social and civic history as well. I was really amazed at how that unfolded for me. So I had heard about Framingham, but I had not realized the depth of history that existed here.
And once you started learning the history of Framingham and you were contemplating this position, did it compel you? Did it feel like the right fit?
Absolutely. And I think that you really hit on one of the primary reasons why I was excited about this position. The Framingham History Center has a structure that is becoming very outward focused. So as I was looking at this potential position, I saw that they were embarking on a community engagement plan. And within historical societies and history centers, it's essential that we're involving the community as history unfolds. And so what I saw with the History Center is not just a repository of history, which it is. We have a collection that is upwards of 10,000 artifacts, but it's also very much focused on what is the present and the future of Framingham as well. How does history play a role in the unfolding of the community and the connection of the community?
Yeah, it's such an interesting conversation to have because so many people come through Framingham. They'll live here temporarily. There's a lot of apartments, you know, they'll move here when they're in a transition period in their life and then they'll move on, maybe not ever even grasping what the history of the community is. And that happens all over the place, not just in Framingham. Not everyone really understands the history of where they live, but you have such a passion for it and you think it's such an important part of just who you are as a person and what you contribute and what you give back during your lifetime. And I find that so interesting. It's a whole unique way of looking at things in a much deeper way.
Exactly, and again, you hit upon one of the things that attracts me about history is that the depth that it contains. A lot of time, you know, many of us have had unfortunate experiences in school where we might have been in a history class and we were memorizing dates and names and events, and we didn't see the connection that it had either to the community or even to ourselves.
No, I had that experience because I really didn't get an appreciation for history until I got much older. It was just very boring in school, and then when I got older and I was, oh my God, it was like hearing it for the first time and just really embracing it and being just totally thrilled with and just perking my curiosity even more when I learned more about history at an older age.
Right, and because it has a sense of resonance.
Yes.
And I think when we talk about the importance of history and the role of history, a lot of times we hear the phrase, it helps us not to repeat mistakes from the past. That is an essential role of history. We learn from the past so that we can make better decisions moving forward.
But does it really?
Only if we study it.
Right.
Only if we study it.
Only if we pay attention to it.
Exactly.
I do see mistakes being made over and over again.
Absolutely. And I would argue if we had history as an active role of our community, it would help us consider, you know, what happened before? How can we learn about the rhythms or the cycles that we encounter? And how can that put us in a position of what is my role? What role do I have to make decisions moving forward? So we we often hear that phrase. Another argument on. Oh, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say that, but that even with the pandemic that we've been going through for the past few years, you know, people talked a lot about, well, didn't we learn from prior pandemics? And maybe we learned some things, but not enough. Maybe there aren't enough people who experience that history to use it and apply it to what we're going through now.
Exactly.
So how do you change that?
Exactly, and that is the role that the History Center, I believe, plays. So the History Center right now is a repository for history of Framingham and the broader community as well. But as we talk about history as a place for learning from mistakes from the past and opportunities for the future, what we have to do is also create a space of reflection and connection. And I think that's often the disconnect. We have hindsight is 20/20 when it comes to history, but that only works if we create a space to actually sit and study history, reflect on how it applies to us, and then connect with each other in the community about what we're going through.
How do you do that? And how does the History Center, is that what you're trying to do at the History Center?
That's exactly what we're looking for. We're hoping to become a gathering space for people of Framingham to talk about the past, the present, and the future of our city. And so at the Framingham History Center, we're able to provide content. We're able to provide artifacts, we're able to provide stories and experiences, but then it's up to our engagement with the community to bring people together and say, what does this mean for us today? And this can happen on both an individual basis as people are walking through our exhibitions, but also in a programmatic experience. We want to pivot to, or rather I should say expand because it's already happening, but a programmatic style that is interactive, that is conversation-based, and that also allows an exploration for an individual into their own history and their own past.
So if there was more of that reflection and connection that you're talking about, what do you think would change?
I think one of the primary things that would change is we would understand the complexity of situations and the importance of connection. So when we talk about history, oftentimes we feel disconnected from the community that we're involved in. You brought up the excellent point that right now many people are moving to Framingham as a location. It's between Boston and Worcester. It's an ideal location if you're commuting, and there's wonderful industry here as well, fantastic corporations and programs. But a lot of times people will move simply from their home to their place of work and back again. History provides a point of connection. If you start hearing about the history of a location where you are, you start identifying with it. If you start identifying with it, you become invested in it. If you're invested in it, you start wanting to volunteer. You want to get involved in what's happening in our civics and our politics. You become a part of that community. And the more that we can see that our individual lives have an influence on what's happening around us, the more we can shape a future that is going to support each other, not just as an individual, but as a whole as well.
Those are some very ambitious, long-term, complex goals.
Yes. Yes.
So how do you achieve those goals?
Well, certainly not alone. So as a history center,
absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So as a history center, again, we are a place where different experiences and histories come together. So we want to continue to play that role. One of my first objectives in these early days of my tenure here is to connect with the community, learn about the institutions that are doing incredible work here already, learn about the individuals who are excited and passionate about Framingham, and start connecting with them. I think some of the best forward-facing plans start with simple conversations. And so once we start co-creating our future together, we'll be able to, as a community, to create that. What we can provide as a history center is a gathering space. We have a wonderful location that's located in a historic center where people can come and gather, but we're also interested in getting out beyond our walls as well. We've had a wonderful opportunity to exist in 3 different locations around the Center Common. So we have the Edgell Memorial Library, we have Village Hall, and then we also have the Old Academy. And they're really anchors, as you know, around the Center Common. But what we're interested in moving forward is also, as we're preserving these spaces, going out and meeting with individuals from the community. Community is a two-way street. just as we want people to be able to come here and experience the history here, we want to go out to the community and say, how can we support you? What can we do to begin building and expanding our future for Framingham?
And how do you keep up with it? Because history is being made every single day. It's,
right. And see, and I love that comment, because that also dispels the idea that history is rooted in a certain era. The dawn of history happens with the dawn of every day. And so part of our initiative is we both have to balance the preservation of the past and also the expansion and the conversation of the present and the future.
I think you should put that in a frame, your new quote, the dawn of history happens with the dawn of every day.
I appreciate that. And I'm glad it came from our conversation here today.
Me too.
But again, it is so much about life as balance. It's balance between, work and rest, between times of reflection and times of connection. And history is the same way. It's balancing, considering what's happened in the past with considering how does our present help inform our future as well.
I can certainly see why you got this job.
Oh my goodness. No, I pinch myself. This is such a wonderful opportunity.
Your passion is just contagious, and I love it. I feel your energy, and I think that you're so motivated and enthusiastic about what you want to accomplish. How do you bite that off into small enough pieces so that you can actually start to make some headway?
So a big part of it is strategic planning. So again, it's starting with the small steps and understanding that we have to have a long view of what's happening. The Framingham History Center at the inception was in 1888. So we're inheriting a legacy that's over 100 years old. So where I'm seeing
the inception of the History Center was in 1888?
When it was a historical society, it was actually created in 1888. So we have a few decades to be able to lean on. But again, looking at the future, not as a one-off initiative or a rush to the finish line, but something that can be sustainable and slow. And the first part has to be with me listening to the community and hearing what's important to you, what's missing in the History Center, which I would love to talk about, and what are you interested in building together. So I have to start with listening.
Okay, listening is good, and it sounds like you've been making the rounds, and I'm sure you have a lot left to do because it takes a long, long time.
And this is a big city.
Yeah, it's a very big city. But go ahead, you said you wanted to talk more about that.
Yep, absolutely. So part of the community engagement plan, this was actually part of what attracted me to the Framingham History Center. So in February of 2022, the board of directors unanimously adopted a community engagement plan that was developed by the FHC staff. And the community engagement plan is specifically focused on making sure that the History Center reflects the demographics of the community. I love how diverse Framingham is. There are so many cultures, there are so many backgrounds that are involved in making this city. And what we find with the Framingham History Center is we have a wonderful collection. It's a family-oriented collection, it's an institution-related collection, but now what we realize is we want to make sure that we're a collection that is reflecting the diversity and the demographics of Framingham. So what we're embarking on is an emphasis and an initiative to start collecting in the areas that reflect our diverse backgrounds.
And do you want that to reflect the diversity for each era and going forward?
Absolutely. So, and you actually bring up a wonderful point that we're not just starting diversity. Diversity didn't just spring up today. Diversity is something that has happened throughout history.
And it's changed throughout history. Yeah,
absolutely.
Diversity today, the complexion of the diversity, the composition of the diversity is very different than it was 200 years ago.
Exactly. And in many ways, it is both a forward-facing goal, so collecting histories and communities, perspectives from our current communities, but also looking backwards and saying, what are the gaps in our history? Whose perspectives are missing? Just like any other institution, a history center is formulated and built by the people of the time and the era. And as we've seen from the past, some perspectives were not as valued, tragically, as other perspectives have been valued. The Framingham History Center is already working on that. So we worked with a scholar in residence, Mary McNeil, and she created people of color from 1600 to 1800 finding aid.
Is this part of your top 10 exhibit?
It's related to it. I'm glad you mentioned that.
I want to hear more about that, but I want to hear about
Absolutely.
Top 10 exhibit.
And so the finding aid is something where we can look backwards in history and say, okay, what are the gaps or the silences in history, and how can we create research opportunities for people to connect those dots today? But the top 10, I would love to talk about that and how that helps connect some of the histories as well.
So, in talking about Framingham's history, you have a top 10 exhibit?
We do, and so this was embarked upon by our curator, Stacey Goldman, and she was looking through our collection and realized we have so many wonderful artifacts that people might not know about yet, and it really spans from 1600s up to close to present day, so really into the 20th century. And what she was able to work on with the community members are what types of artifacts are you interested in seeing? And these are artifacts that are both celebratory of our history, but also artifacts that bring up challenging conversations as well. One of the, and I believe actually the earliest document that's in our top 10 exhibition is a land deed from the 1600s that talks about the granting of land from the Nipmuc community, 5 individuals, to an English settler. And this is such an important document because it is a legal document that reflects our indigenous population's presence as well, and we know that the Nipmuc community continues to be a vibrant part of our Metro West region today. So it looks into history and says we don't just want to talk about the histories that might be readily apparent, but also about the histories among the indigenous populations that are often overshadowed. There's also a bill of sale for an enslaved individual, for a child, that we have. And it is very hard for us to think about and contemplate slavery existing within what is today Framingham, but that's a part of our exhibition. We also talk about other areas of history. We have freedom pins that we have from 2 suffragists in the early 1900s. And these pins represent their work, so Mayo and Collins were their last name, their work toward gaining the right to vote for women. There are only 5 known pins in existence in public institutions today, and we have 2 of them here at the Framingham History Center. But again, it goes all the way up. We have the Shoppers World sign, the neon sign that I know many of your viewers will recognize. I'm coming to learn so much about Shoppers World in my first time here. But the top 10 is a great way for visitors to come and say, how can I look at Framingham?
So is that available for visitors at any time?
It is. So the top 10 exhibition is located in our Edgell Memorial Library. And right now our hours are Tuesday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We are looking to expand those hours, especially to accommodate people who might be working or going to school during that time period.
How do people know about this?
So you can visit our website. We are at framinghamhistory.org, and we have a very robust website that talks about our upcoming events and programs. It has a wonderful blog that has deep dives into history, but there are also opportunities to connect with us.
And is there a way, to connect with you, meaning what?
So either through volunteer opportunities, internship opportunities, but also we are an independent nonprofit institution.
You're not run by the city.
Correct, exactly. So we have a wonderful relationship with the city, but as an independent nonprofit, we rely entirely on donations from our community members, from grants, and from foundations. So as a community-run organization, we definitely need and very much search for the community support, both content-wise but also financially. So going online is a chance to become a member where you have access to our events, our programs, admission, and also become a donor as well.
Do you have any specific programming coming up that you want to talk about?
Absolutely. So we have an exciting fall schedule coming up. I do want to talk about a specific event that's going to be at the end of October of this year, and it's the Haunted Trolley Tour. Some of your viewers might have remembered the Haunted Trolley Tour from the past, and we're actually resurrecting it after a 16-year hiatus.
I've been on the Haunted Trolley Tour.
You have? So
many years ago, yes.
I'll have to ask you about your experience.
I look forward to having it come back. That's
Absolutely.
Great.
And for those of our audience who are new to this, it's actually an exploration through the spooky past of Framingham. So we have 18 stops on the tour. So this is great if you're new to Framingham like myself. You get a tour.
How often will it run?
So there will actually be 2 different time periods that people will be able to go on. So we have a couple of different time slots, but we're looking at, definitely this fall and possibly possibly for the future. But you can learn everything from what is the haunted history of Framingham. Is there Captain Kidd's buried gold treasure here? What's the story of the Salem witch trials and escapees here? So there are a lot of fun aspects that you might be able to become a part of with the Haunted Trolley Tour.
So that's something to look forward to in the near future, and hopefully to continue.
Absolutely.
Things came to a halt, unfortunately, but a lot of things are coming back.
It is.
And with new leadership and new energy, and great history, and people that have had a significant impact in the past, like Annie Murphy.
Absolutely.
Things just will continue, and nothing will. Even with the loss of the institutional knowledge from somebody who's been there so long, there's a new energy with someone new coming in and discovering.
And this is an opportunity, just like history unfolds, Annie Murphy's incredible work, her connections with the community, we have an opportunity to now build on that thanks to her efforts. But again, I'm excited. Framingham is a special place, and I know it's interesting to sort of stop and pause and reflect on that, but as a history center, that's the opportunity we have to stop and say, what's around me? What can I connect with? What history inspires me for the future?
I think that's a good goal, and I think getting more people to connect. It sounds like the community engagement plan and strategy is something that is taken very seriously, and will have a big impact.
Absolutely. So now we just need to make it happen. So I'm looking forward to the conversations moving forward.
Well, that's great, and it sounds like you're going to make it happen, and I look forward to seeing the fruits of your labor, and I think the community will all benefit from that. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. This has been a wonderful opportunity, and I've really enjoyed our time together.
I have as well. Thank you. Anna, I just want to thank you, and I say Anna Tucker, for being here, Executive Director of the Framingham History Center. Both women we heard from today are making history and preserving, honoring, and sharing it with great enthusiasm and expertise. More information on the USS Constitution and the Framingham History Center is available on their websites, on Facebook, Instagram, and I want to thank you for tuning into the Audrey Hall Show, where you will always learn something new.